Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, Smashers. My name is Sage, and we here at Sex Show Resources are very excited to spotlight a newly discovered tech that we believe is meta-changing for the FGC characters in Smash Ultimate, that being Terry, Ryu, and Ken. So before getting into the tech, we want to give a big shout out and full credit to the illustrious Shoto Zages for discovering the tech in the first place, and other Shotos like A Hero and Tornado and other very good and dedicated Shoto labbers for expanding on the tech and finding some really useful applications for it through heavy labbing and research. So we want to thank these guys for all their hard work, and let's get into this tech. The name for this new tech is called Command Orientation Input Lock, or COIL for short. The basis of the COIL tech comes from the understanding that the game handles FGC fighters a bit differently than all the rest of the cast. You see, for FGC fighters, the game seems to recognize 3 different types of sticks. You have your normal movement stick, you have your C stick, but for FGC fighters, there's a third invisible stick called the Command Input Stick. Or at least that's what we like to call it. This Command Input Stick is completely synchronized with your movement stick until we desync it with the C stick. And that's how COIL is born, essentially. So what does that mean? Let's take Terry, for example, because we believe he has the most use out of this COIL tech. Let's take his wonderful and intangible charged rising tackle as an example. As many of you may know, to perform a charged rising tackle normally, you would hold down on the movement stick for a short amount of time, then you'd flick up, then hit the special or attack button, and this would give you sort of a souped up version of rising tackle where it's intangible, it goes higher, hits harder, and is an all-around better move. But it's hindered with the fact that you have to charge the down input for a short amount of time before you can use it. Now, if we utilize the COIL technique, we're going to have access to a charged rising tackle and still have the freedom of movement of your movement stick. You can run, jump, roll, dodge, even shield, and still maintain that charge for charged rising tackle. So how do you do it? First, hold down on the movement stick. Now, while holding down the movement stick, you're going to hold any direction on the C stick. For this tutorial purposes, we're going to choose down direction. So hold down on the movement stick, then while holding down on the movement stick, hold down on the C stick. Then, while holding down on the C stick, you can let go of the movement stick. Holding down on the C stick has now locked in the down input for the command input stick, that invisible stick I mentioned earlier. You now have the freedom to move around with your movement stick. To perform the actual charged rising tackle, let go of the C stick, then quickly input up and then either special or attack, and you will release a charged rising tackle immediately. You can use COIL to pull out any input command. So for another example, we can pull out input burn knuckle out of a run or out of any movement without having to stall and do the quarter circle forward movement. It is important to note that in order for COIL to work for every other input command, whether that be from Terry's kit or the Shoto's kit, the second step of the input must be held before releasing the C stick, thus releasing the COIL lock. Let's take Terry's burn knuckle as an example. The move is normally performed by holding down and then doing a quarter circle forward movement, then pressing either special or A, and that'll give you the input version of burn knuckle. You know you've done it right if you see a green flame behind Terry as he does the move. So when you're trying to get an input burn knuckle out of a run animation, you find yourself stopping at the end to input the move. You also risk the chance of getting a power dunk if you're not careful with the timing. With coil, it allows you to do this seamlessly. To do it, you have to hold down on the movement stick and then hold any direction of the C-stick. We'll choose C-stick down this time again. And then you can let go of the movement stick and you can start moving around, jumping around. When you want, start the run animation by holding forward. Now while holding forward and run, let go of C-stick and then press either A or special, and you'll get an instant input burn knuckle. You'll see the green flames behind them. Coiling down will also help you perform a front-facing input crack shoot regardless of how long you've been holding back while coiling. So now you can reap the benefits of a front-facing input crack shoot without worrying about fumbling the inputs or turning the wrong way. So let's stop here for a couple seconds and pivot to two very important topics. First being the pros and cons of using coil. So what actions can you perform during coil? As I mentioned earlier, you can shield, you can jump, you can roll, you can air dodge, you can tech, you can also dash grab out of a run or shortly out of initial dash. And you can also use your B specials. But it is important to note that if you use your specials, you will break your coil lock. What you cannot do while coiled is attack. All A button attacks will not register. You cannot shield grab, you cannot dash grab out of an early initial dash, you can't pivot grab or pick up items. So keep this in mind when using coil. Fortunately, there's an alternative coil tech you can use that will allow you to attack, and we'll go over that in just a few minutes. The next thing I wanted to talk about is notation. Shoto mains and Shoto labbers like to use what we call numpad notation to communicate different sequences needed for moves, tech, and combos. The numpad notation is based on the number pad on a keyboard. Each number represents a different direction. With the revelation of coil, we've also expanded on notation to coil notation. I've left the graphic on the screen so you can study. Please pause the video and check it out. Moving forward, I'm going to communicate sequences using numpad and coil notation. Now let's talk about Terry's Go really quick when using coil. Coil will allow you to execute Buster Wolf and Power Geyser a bit more quicker and easier than the standard. So for Buster Wolf, you're going to coil 2, then while holding 6, you're going to C-release coil 2, and then go to 2, 6, and then special or A. And that's going to give you a Buster Wolf. You can do this very easily out of a run and catch opponents off guard. For Terry's Power Geyser, you're going to coil 2, hold 4, and while holding 4, you're going to C-release coil 2, and then go to 6 and hit special or A, and you'll get an easier Power Geyser. So, admittedly, it kind of sucks that you can't attack while coiling. It really hinders the applications of the move a bit. That is unless you use the double tap coil method. So to use the double tap coil method, first we need to choose which direction we want to lock. Let's choose direction 2 or down. So hold down on the movement stick. While holding down on the movement stick, you're going to flick your C-stick twice in any direction. But the second flick will be held. If you did it quick enough and you did it right, you'll only get 1 tilt and not 2. So let's say you chose to flick C-stick down, you'll get 1 down tilt, but not a second one. Now you would have effectively performed a double tap coil. It's important to note that the direction you want to double tap coil lock does not have to be held until before the second C-stick flick, but it's a tight window, so keep that in mind. You can now attack and do any other move you want, except tilts with the C-stick, of course. This is a bit hard for standard control schemes because of the distance between the A button and the C-stick. But if you use claw, or if you change your configuration to have your attack to be a bumper, let's say, then you have more freedom of attack. Otherwise, with standard control schemes, you're now allowed to grab more freely. Using coil and using double tap coil can be very beneficial for both the Shotos as well. This will allow for easier shakunetsus with Ryu, and it will also allow for easier crescent kicks and roundhouses with Ken. We suggest you hit the lab and practice different sequences. So that about wraps up our spotlight on coil and double tap coil. We are still labbing, we are still researching, and we are still finding new applications and unique variations to this tech every day. So look forward to future videos from Sexual Resources on this. We also again want to give huge shoutouts and credit to Zages for finding the tech, and other Shotos who've helped with resources and this video, such as Hades, Tornado, Kintyus, A-Hero, just to name a few. Also, be on the lookout for videos from prominent Shotos like Ronin, Nito, and Jivo. Thanks for watching, everyone, and Smashers, keep on smashing.